everyone, and welcome to Leading with Hope. Jen, thank you so much for being our guest today. I am so thrilled to be able to have the chance to interview you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it also.
So this is number 7 of our 7-part series in partnership with the Global Wellness Institute Workplace Wellbeing Initiative. And Jen, you are also a member of the GWI Workplace Wellbeing Initiative. So it's nice to have this be full circle, bring it to a member of GWI as our final guest of this 7-part series. And so special thanks to Jessica Grossmeyer, Ellen at Serrano, and all the other members of the initiative. And the goal of Workplace Wellbeing, of the Workplace Wellbeing Initiative, is to transform workplace well-being, enhance organizational performance, and empower a thriving workforce. So, Jen, I just, first of all, I just love your personal story, and we're going to start off with that. But I want to first just let everybody know who you are. You're the founder and CEO of the Wellbeing Team, and that's relatively new. You started that, I guess, about a year ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like I have an echo here, so I might take these out.
Oh, Laura, I think you're on mute.
Okay, we're back. Global expert on workplace well-being and hope strategy, best-selling author for a book called Work Better Together, which you co-authored with Ann Phillips. And you're also a return guest to our LinkedIn Live. We had you back in August of 2022, if I'm
It feels like it was forever ago.
So what's really exciting here is that your book launch it actually launches on the 27th of January. Hope is the strategy, the underrated skill that transforms work, leadership, and well-being. So we are celebrating that today. I encourage everyone to pre-order it. Not only because it's great to have it, but also it's a great favor to Jen. You have no idea, as somebody who is also an author, getting those pre-orders in is so important. So please support Jen in pre-ordering your copy. But also on February 1st, if you happen to be in Miami, you can join Jen for her official in-person book launch at Books and Books in Miami. So first off, Jen, where are you coming from?
I am in Miami. I live in
You're
Miami.
in Miami right now.
I am
Okay,
in
so you're
my
not
home
traveling.
office with my very real background in Miami. Yes.
We have a real background here as well. I'm in San Francisco, so I always like to hear from all of our listeners, where are you coming from? It looks like we've got lots of different people coming in here. We have someone coming in from Kingston, Jamaica. I love hearing that. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Rana, nice to see you. We've got Greater Boston, which is actually where my dad's side of the family is from. Hello from Fairfax Station, Virginia. So it looks like
Lisa. I know Lisa.
Of course, we have Jessica coming in here from Gilroy. And so please keep those coming. Let us know where you're coming from. And as always, I encourage you to share your comments and please provide lots of questions. Jen is happy to answer those questions. All right, Jen, I want to start first with your story, because you really do have a compelling story. And one of the things that I also didn't mention in the bio is the fact that you were the first Chief Wellbeing Officer for Deloitte. So that's another really critical piece in your story. So let's hear about your story on a more personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you for having me here. And I'm going to try to keep this quick and high level so we can get into the meat of the conversation around hope. But, about me, as you said, I spent 23 years of my career at Deloitte. I left at the end of May in 2024. So I guess it's been about a year and a half. For the last 10 years of my time at Deloitte, I served in the Chief Wellbeing Officer role and dabbled a little bit in a new area around human sustainability, which is very much connected to workplace well-being and just well-being in general. And, how I ended up in that role and the connection to hope, which I'll get to, is really a combination of my own experience with very significant, severe personal burnout and just organizational and industry need at the time, which it's still a need for that industry and quite frankly for all industries right now. But yeah, I experienced pretty significant burnout. This is about 10 and a half, 11 years ago, when we weren't really, I mean, Laura, you might have been one of the only that I know at the time that was really trying to bring this to the forefront, and put it center stage. But especially in professional services, we weren't necessarily talking about well-being at work. We had good benefits and resources for our people, but nobody was talking about burnout in the way that we are today. And so I knew I was struggling. I knew there was something wrong, but I was working inside of a high performance environment. And so, raising my hand and saying, hey, I'm struggling and I need help, or I don't feel like I can do this, felt like personal failure. And I think that unfortunately, that's what a lot of people who experience burnout who are struggling feel, is that it is personal failure. And so I didn't say anything. And it got so bad that, I ultimately had to take a leave of absence, and get myself both physically and mentally well. And in the process of doing that, it really ignited or reignited my passion around different aspects of my own personal well-being, and really motivated me to think about how can I bring this into the workplace. And so when I went back to work, I actually went back to my leader and was going to resign because there wasn't a role like mine at Deloitte. And it was her vision, probably much more than mine at the time, where she said, you're not going anywhere, because if you need this, there's a lot of other people that do too. And so she really created the space and the runway for me to create the first Chief Wellbeing Officer role at Deloitte. And there's a lot in there. But the connection to hope, and, hope is the strategy. My new book is coming out because people always ask me, like, why hope? And, how did you learn about hope? And why does it matter so much to you? So during that burnout, when I took time off, I sought out clinical care. I went to therapy with a psychiatrist. And he was actually the one that had me read C.R. Snyder's work around hope, and actually had me do hope practices, hope building practices, the actual work of hope, as part of my recovery from burnout. And it was so powerful for me at that time that, even as I started to feel better and went back to work, I continued to practice those things in my personal life. And then over time, I figured out how to bring that into who I was as a leader, and how I was leading my teams, and how I was inspiring people. And even though I might not have named it at the time, the practices were the same, especially in the corporate world, or just in life in general. We hear that hope is not a strategy. And I vehemently disagree with that. And when I hear it, I say things like, well, good luck with your strategy if you can't get people hopeful and on board with what you're trying to do, what you're trying to change, what you're trying to transform. So that was not as short as I wanted it to be, but let's move on.
So hope is the strategy. And as we have been doing in past LinkedIn Lives for this series, we are doing a book giveaway. And this is extra special because not only will our winner get a copy of the book, Hope is the Strategy, but you will also receive the toolkit that accompanies it, called Hope Strategist Toolkit. So as usual, if you are interested in being considered for the book raffle, please write in the chat, I'm in. So you describe in your book, and I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek of it, that hope waits to be recognized, to be cultivated, to be chosen. So first of all, how would you define hope? And then what does it look like to lead with hope, AKA be a hope dealer? I love your hat. And by the way, if anybody wants to get the hat, we're putting the link in for the Etsy link where you can order your hope dealer hat as well. But tell us a little bit about how you define it, and what does that look like to lead with hope and uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, my definition of hope is not really my definition. It is C.R. Snyder's definition. But if you ask me kind of what I mean when I say a hope dealer, it's funny because most often Napoleon Bonaparte is the one that is credited with saying that leaders are dealers in hope. And so that's a whole different discussion as to why Napoleon or how Napoleon, right? But, to me, what is meant by that is, a hope dealer is somebody that sees possibility where others see roadblocks, where others see barriers. And that links directly back to C.R. Snyder's kind of definition around what real hope is. And so real hope is not wishful thinking. It's not saying, oh, I hope I win the lottery, and then, sitting on the couch and kind of waiting for it to happen. First of all, real hope requires three things. It requires a goal. So kind of knowing where you want to go, then identifying, multiple pathways, 3 to 4 pathways in which you can reach that goal. And then it requires agency. And so knowing that you have the ability, that you can affect change towards reaching that goal. And so if you set a goal that is completely unrealistic and unattainable, and you don't have the ability to do anything about it, that's actually not hope. That's not the practice of hope. And so the practice of hope is very specific. What makes hope hard for a lot of people is, number one, we've been told that, hope is soft, and that hope is not a strategy, and that hope is, wishful thinking. But I think also what makes hope hard is that hope doesn't guarantee success. What hope guarantees, and so like hope will let you down. Like there will be moments where you're like, shit, like this is hard. But what hope does guarantee is that there is always another pathway. And so, if you've identified those ahead of time, and if you start down one pathway and it doesn't work, and you feel blocked and you feel stuck, instead of staying stuck, you say, oh, wait, but I identified these other 2 pathways. So let me take what I learned and shift to this pathway. And so you never truly feel stuck when you're leading from a place of hope, when you're practicing hope. And so, how does that translate as a leader? I mean, hopefully it's pretty obvious based on what I just said, but, for leaders, and I think especially in the times when we're living in, unprecedented uncertainty, AI transformation, what does that mean for everybody? I personally believe that so much of our messaging is fear-based, and that's why people are scared. If we could change the messaging and the narrative, yay, I love dogs.
I'm so sorry.
Do not apologize. That's like that like was the best part of this entire webinar, right? Like I love that. So, as a leader, the way that we show up, the way that we communicate to our teams, the way, the truth that we tell when we're uncertain, or when we're anxious, or when we're not sure that something is going to work is very hope building for leaders and for teams, because you're showing up authentically and you're telling the truth. And, people are smart. They know when you're not telling the truth, and people can deal with hard truths a lot easier than they can deal with uncertainty.
So I love some of the comments that are coming in, including some comments,
especially the ones about your dog. Those are the most important ones.
Real life. Thank you, Susan. So again, for our audience, please submit your questions and continue with your comments. But one of the things that you talk about is that we live in this society of more, and never have enough, and that you recast burnout not as exhaustion, but as hopelessness. And then you go on to describe how there's the bigger problem is our collective gray zone, something that Corey Keyes has used to describe the space between functioning and flourishing. So it's not quite, it sounds like it's not all the way in the red zone, but it's right. The gray. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so, and this is, based on, my own personal experiences, but just, the world that I've lived in from a workplace well-being perspective for so many years. First, I want to say that this is not me trying to say that burnout isn't real. Burnout is absolutely real. As somebody who has experienced it very significantly, this is actually my attempt to say, hey, burnout is one thing, and we need to acknowledge what that is, and that is very real. But so often, as we always do, we're using burnout to name and claim a lot of things that aren't burnout. And so what I'm trying to do is say that, yes, burnout exists and it's very real and it's very serious and we need to pay attention to that. But what I think we are, more of us are actually in that gray zone, that space between functioning and flourishing. We can get up, we can do our jobs, we can, in large part perform well, but we're not engaged. We're not, our emotions are muted. We're not feeling joy. We, kind of sometimes participate in the things that make us us, but sometimes we, opt out of them, but we just don't feel the same amount of energy and joy that perhaps that we used to. And so, you're functioning, you're not all the way, as you said, in the red zone, but you're also not flourishing. You're not, reaching your potential and enjoying life in the way that all of us should. And I do think that this, this culture of more, and again, I want to be clear that this doesn't mean that you shouldn't have ambition and you shouldn't have goals. As a matter of fact, I think that hope is the fuel that, fires ambition and goals more than anything. But, we live in this society that if you're paying attention at all, it's telling you that who you are, what you have, what you do is never enough, and it will never be enough, right? And we're all living in that. And if that's the constant messaging that you're paying attention to, no wonder we're all living in this collective gray zone, walking around going, wow, I need to do more. I need to be more. I'm not enough. That is horrible for the human psyche and for our mental and emotional health. And so I do think that we need to redefine success. Again, that doesn't mean have ambition, but it does mean, stop comparing yourself to these external markers that may or may not align with your value set, right? It's, and in the book, I use the metaphor of the corner office, right? Like the corner office, so often, people make it and they're like, wait, this is all there is. Like I worked so hard, I sacrificed so much. And in the metaphor of the corner office is there's usually one. So we're all competing, and kicking each other on the way up. And it feels horrible. And so why do we keep doing that?
The message I tell myself all the time is the Brene quote, I am imperfect and I am enough. And I cannot tell you how often I say that. And what's interesting is, yes, there are things that we need to be doing from within, and we need to push back against that narrative. But at the same time, as you bring up in the book, we, as in Jen, Laura, all of our listeners here, and everybody else, we are not failing. Our models are failing us. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to share some of the quotes from your book. We offer meditation apps and wellness programs while maintaining the very systems that cause the distress in the first place. We teach resilience techniques that help people endure broken structures rather than transforming those structures. We treat burnout as a personal responsibility rather than a systemic inevitability. I couldn't agree with you more. We've been so focused on that fish. Yeah. And we have not paid enough attention to the water. And that fish is exhausted with all of these messages around personal responsibility and how it's all about mindset and it's all up to them. So talk with me a little bit about how our systems are broken and then how we might start to repair those.
Yeah, I think in particular, and kind of where this comes from, and I know Laura and so many people on the phone that are on the call that I've had conversations with, you understand this deeply. But where we are from a workplace well-being perspective right now is, we continue to believe that these band-aid solutions, which by the way, I'm not knocking on meditation apps. If a meditation app works for you, that's great. By all means, you should use it and you should continue using it. What I'm saying is that we're actually not being fair to the meditation app, because the meditation app was never designed to fix the system problems. Right? Like, okay, so you're looking at like leaders are looking at the ROI of these things. And I'm like, you're not even like, you can't do that, right? Because you deployed a meditation app and you checked the box and you said, we're done. And then leaders are kind of throwing up their hands and saying, well, I did this and everybody's still saying that work sucks. And I'm like, because the meditation app is never going to fix the workplace system problems. And so what am I talking about? Ways of working, design of work, the relationship, the relational aspects of work, the contextual flexibility of work. And I don't necessarily mean in the office, out of office, because that's a hot button right now, although that's a part of it. But different types of work, especially for different types of people, happen in contexts, right? And so if you put somebody in a context where they're uncomfortable and expect them to be, in tip-top performance shape, not understanding, who they are and the kind of barriers that creates for them, creates performance issues that is caused by the system, not because the person is not a good performer, right? And so those are the types of things that we need to step back and understand. Cognitive load management is a huge one, right? Understanding, intrinsic and extrinsic load and motivation and how people work and what lights them up. And, yes, we're all going to have aspects of our work that we don't enjoy doing, but how can we as leaders minimize those and maximize other things, right? And so I talk about those as, well-being intelligence, right? We need to start teaching well-being as a skill set or a set of skills and capabilities that we require from our leaders, just like we require technological competence and operational competence. Like, well-being of the people that work for you is critical, if not foundational, to everything else that happens in organizational life. Sorry, that was very preachy.
It was perfect. It was perfect. So I would love to get some comments and questions from some of our listeners. I know that there are some that have come in. Alana, if you wouldn't mind posting those. So with burnout, it is key to authentically recognize its impact and be proactive in finding ways to address the root cause. With my past experience, it was bringing up and carrying my community to find hope, rediscover the joy of life, new hobbies and shared activities, and walk with each other in our collective pursuit in endeavors that drives us. These proactive approaches help all of us to pivot together and cultivate a community of compassion, resilience, and hope. Wondering if you want to respond to that.
Amen. I mean, what else is there to say? What I'll say that I love about that is that from a hope perspective, what we know about hope is that hope grows in community. It flourishes in community with others. And that goes back to being a hope dealer. So if, we can all be dealers in hope, or leaders as dealers in hope, then hope is contagious and it does flourish out and ripple out to others.
So one of my favorite things to do whenever we go to Maine every year, and I always love to skip stones on the water. And I always feel like, to your point, that each of us can create a ripple out effect, and we can start to be that generator of hope across communities. So let's talk a little bit about how we start to build true systemic well-being, not just personal well-being, but systemic well-being, each of us creating this ripple out effect. Let's start first with the individual. What's something that individuals can do to start creating a positive ripple out effect?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the obvious and number one thing that an individual can do is take care of yourself, and do it loudly. Do not do it in secret. Do not do it, I have a secret appointment this afternoon. Like, do it loudly. And now that doesn't mean share all your personal information, but let others know how you are taking care of yourself and that it's important to you, or how you're setting boundaries and that's important to you. And then the other thing is, I would say, once you have figured out how to take care of yourself, look at your own behaviors and your own comfort zone, and try to audit how you in your own comfort zone might be making other people uncomfortable, and start to try to make change there, right? Because that's where, we're all part of the system, right? We either reinforce the system or we change the system. And so if staying in our comfort zone creates discomfort for others, we should reach out and try to come to, a middle place. Maybe we can't fix it 100%, but can we create, a less messy middle? So that's what I would say for individuals, for all of us. I would definitely say that for managers and leaders, right? Like, looking at your own behaviors. This does not mean that you are a bad leader or a bad manager. Sometimes we aren't even aware of how our own behaviors are affecting others. And so why would we correct them if we don't know, or if we don't have the awareness? And so cultivating that awareness and those conversations with your teams, so that where you can make change, you start to make change.
So in 2026, it looks like we have a question here. If you could give every leader one practice that reliably expands hope within a team, especially during demanding seasons, what would it be and why? And Samantha, thank you for your question.
Yeah, I love this question. I think the easiest way to inspire and expand hope is to look at our language. And this isn't a game in semantics, but so often as leaders and managers, and just generally as people, we say things because we think that it is the responsible thing to say. But we say things like, oh, we've tried that before and it didn't work, or that's not the way that we do things here. We're not going to do that, right? That's hope killing language. You're basically telling someone, don't bring your idea to me. And we don't, most of us, I've done it 1,000 times before. We don't mean it. I thought that it was the responsible leaderly thing to do, to be, to say, no, that's not the way we do that here, but that is hope killing language. So thinking about your language, and, if it inspires hope, if it inspires innovation, or if it is, what I call a hope killer. The other thing I would say, be a truth teller. Even if the truth is hard, learn how to tell the truth, and tell it in a way that you say, look, I'm worried about this too, but I believe in our ability to solve this problem together, right? And so you're leading with the truth. You're giving the people hard truth, but you're also saying, hey, I'm here, I've got your back, and we're going to figure this out together.
I love that. And it's such a powerful message to both leaders and managers. I mean, I think a lot of times when you talk to leaders and managers about leading well-being or leading hope, they feel like that they have to be perfect, and it really is not about being perfect. It's
no,
really
as a matter of fact, it's actually about being more imperfect. Like, people want to work for leaders that are human, not leaders that are robots and never screw up.
So this is the moment where we have our book draw. So if we could announce our winner. So our winner, congratulations, goes to Brett Powell. So Brett, you will be receiving a copy of the book after it comes out, along with the toolkit. So top 3 takeaways for our listeners, Jen.
Top 3 takeaways. Of course, number 1 is make hope your strategy. You don't have to make hope your only strategy, but definitely make it part of your strategy. Well-being and well-being intelligence is absolutely a leadership skill set. And, if you are struggling of, struggles of any kind right now, because there's a lot going on in this world, remember that hope grows in community. So reach out to others. Be a giver of hope, and that will create hope for yourself too.
I have to say, Jen, every time I see a post from you, or I get to engage with you directly as I do right now, I really do feel like I feel a sense of hope. And so I really appreciate the fact that you've brought hope to all of us, and you've really created this community, because goodness knows we need it more than ever. So how can people follow your work?
Well, they can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. It's where I'm most active. But I also have a website if you want to learn more about me and what I'm up to and my services. It's jen-fisher.com. So you can find me there. And then, of course, as you said before, please pre-order the book. I've gotten to the point where I'm begging.
It really makes all the difference. So, Jen, thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. And we have lots and lots of comments. Love to see all these comments come in. And if there were any questions that we weren't able to get to, then Jen, would you be willing to answer those after the fact? Because we do always have a newsletter where we have an opportunity to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah, and absolutely. I will do my best.
Right. So next up, in partnership with the Wellness Alliance, will be the Million Managers launch. That is our goal in 2026, is to empower 1 million managers to be well-being multipliers for their team. We will have a live event with Ryan Piccarella, Executive Director of Wellness Alliance. Tune in on January 28th, 9 to 9:45 a.m. Pacific time. Jen, you were amazing. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone. Happy holidays. We'll see you in January. And again, Jen, thank you so much. You're amazing.
Thank you. But your dog was still the best part of the entire webinar.
Thank you, Jen. Bye, everyone.